Hey everybody, today we're moving on to something somewhat new, but it uses some things that we've learned in the past. It's called factoring by grouping, and we do this when we have four terms. Now there are four terms because there's one, two, three, four different kind of things separated by plus and minus signs. Now the first one doesn't have one, but then there's a minus sign here, a plus sign here, and a minus sign here. So again, our terms are just, hey, you have four things? I think that's the easiest way to kind of explain it. There's one, two, three, four different things there. Okay, now what we need to do is, I want you to do this on every problem. What you need to do is after your second term, so this is your first term, this is your second, after your second and before your third, you're going to draw a straight line. So it's very important that you keep this sign on the right-hand side, okay? Oh boy, I'll redraw that after I erase all this. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to draw an arrow to the left, okay? So I drew my line in the middle, my arrow to the left, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out my GCF to the left. So what number multiplies in to 5 and 25? Well, 5 does. Now, how many x's can I take out? This has 3 x's. This one has 2, so each of them have at least 2. I can factor out an x squared. So 5x squared comes first. 5x to the third divided by 5x squared. My 5's cancel. I have 3 x's here. I take out 2, I'm left with just x. Now I'm going to factor this term, the one that I just underlined or put a blue rectangle under. Okay, so negative 25 divided by 5 is minus 5. Now x squared divided by x squared, so I did this divided by this. They cancel each other out, so I don't have to write anything. So I have 5x times x minus 5. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing to the right of my green line. So now 2x minus 10, this one's a little easier. Well, this is a 2, this is a 10. You can divide both those numbers by 2, but now it's a 2 and we divided it by a positive 2. What's left? 2x divided by 2 is x. Negative 10 divided by 2 is minus 5. Okay, now one last step. When you look at this right here, you should say, hey, these have the same thing. They have an x minus 5 and an x minus 5. Yes, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of combine these to be the same thing. We're going to say, since they're the exact same, let's write it one time down here. Now, I'm going to do the same thing and combine, do it in purple, this and this. Okay, so now my first term that I underlined in purple was 5x squared. The second term I underlined in purple was 2. X minus 5 times 5x squared plus 2 is your final answer. Okay, we just have 4 more examples like that to go through today. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to draw a line down the middle in purple. Right down the middle after the second term before the sign of the next one. I'm going to factor out a GCF to the left. So we got to think 8 and 6. What number goes into both 8 and 6? Well, 2 does. Now, x to the third, x squared. I can take at least out an x squared. Now what's left over? 8 divided by 2 is 4. X to the third divided by x squared. You have 3 x's. You take out 2. You're left with 4x. Okay, next up, we're going to do this term divided by this. 6 divided by 2 is plus 3. Now, this was an x squared. This was an x squared. They cancel each other out. I'm factoring it out. I'm dividing, so they cancel each other out. So I get 2x times 4x plus 3. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the right. 20x and 5. What can I take out of there? We can take out a 5, but it's a plus 5 because, again, that's right, it's a positive 5 that I'm taking out. Now, what's 20 divided by 5? Well, it's 4x. Again, there's an x right here, so we got to have an x right here. Now, 15 divided by 5 is 4x plus 3. Okay, now we just have one more step, and just like before, These two things are the exact same. I have 4x plus 3 and 4x plus 3. If they're not the same, I can't do this. But since I have the exact same thing written twice, I smush it together and I only write 1 down here, 4x plus 3. Now what's left over for this part? I have a 2x squared and a plus 5. 4x plus 3 times 2x squared plus 5. Okay, on to the next one. Again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So you start factoring by grouping by drawing a line right down the middle. I'm going to factor my GCF to the left. Okay, I have a 4 and a 5. Well, no numbers going to both 4 and 5, so that's okay. Maybe you can only take out some x's now. I have an x to the third and an x squared. I'm going to take out an x squared because they each have at least 2 x's. Okay, now what's 4x to the third divided by x squared? That's just x. That's 4x. Now what's 5x squared divided by x squared? Well, the x squareds cancel out. 4x plus 5. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the right. 20x plus 25. Well, 20 and 25, what number comes out of both those? Should be a plus 5. Now what's 20x divided by 5? Should be 4x. 25 divided by 5 plus 5. Again, I did this divided by this equals this. Now, again, you should notice, hey, these are the exact same things. 4x plus 5, 4x plus 5. If they're not the exact same, you're probably doing something wrong, okay? So it's 4x plus 5. I only need to write it one time. Now what's left here and here? X squared was my first one. My second one that I underlined in black was plus 5. Done. Okay. Next up, I have 4 terms. Draw a line right down the middle. Factor the GCF to the left. 5n squared minus 5n. Well, these both have at least 5n. Okay, when I do this now, 5n squared, take out a 5n. Well, the 5's cancel. I had an n squared. I take out an n. I'm left with just n. Now, this is kind of weird. So please make sure you're listening. It's minus 5n, and I'm taking out a 5n. So what's 5 divided by 5? Well, it's negative 1. Remember, they technically cancel each other out, but what we're doing is 5n divided by 5n. Well, really, the 5's cancel out. The n's cancel, and we're not left with just nothing over nothing. It's 1 over 1, which is just 1. Okay, so it's 5n minus 1. On the right-hand side, 3n minus 3. So now I'm going to take out a plus, well, what number can I take out of 3n and 3? I'm going to take out they both have a 3. Okay, now 3n divided by 3 is just n. Now it's negative 3 divided by positive 3. Negative divided by a positive is a minus 1. And now again, you should notice, hey, these are the exact same things. n minus 1 and n minus 1. So I'm only going to write it one time down here. What's left over in front? A 5n. What's left over here? Plus 3. Okay, example 4. If you want to pause and try this one on your own, this is the last one for the day. Okay, here we go. So we're going to start off by doing what? Well, like always, we're going to draw a line right down the middle. Draw an arrow to the left. Draw an arrow to the right. Okay, on the left, we got to factor out a GCF. So 16 and 20. What number comes out of 16 and 20? It should be 4. Now, x squared and x, they both have at least one x. I'm going to divide both of those terms by 4x. So, again, 16 divided by 4 is 4. x squared divided by x is x. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the right. Negative 20 divided by 4 is minus 5. X divided by x is, well, they cancel each other out. So I get 4x times 4x minus 5. And now let's do the right side. Okay, on the right side, I have a 4x minus 5. And now that should kind of ring a bell because, well, hey, Mr. Adler, this already looks the exact same as this. Yeah, it does. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, like before, this was in parentheses and this was in parentheses, right? So now, kind of along the same lines, we're just going to write that in a parenthesis. We're going to say there's no GCF there, so it's just going to be 4x minus 5. But now you might be saying, well, Mr. Adler, this one had a 5n and then a number out front. So what's the number out front right here? Well, if we didn't factor anything out, the highest number, their greatest common factor, the highest number that goes into both 4 and 5 is plus 1. Okay, now, well, 4x minus 5 and 4x minus 5, right at one time here. And then 4x plus 1, 4x plus 1. Okay, that is all I have for you today. If you have any questions,